Okay, ready? We're going to start the next chapter of the Tale of Despereaux. Chapter 30, To the Dungeon. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Meg had enough to eat, and eat she did. She quickly became plump, and then plumper still. She grew rounder and bigger, only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Meg was the tiniest bit lazy, and too, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Meg Rousseau could effectively perform. In quick succession, Meg failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. A seamstress, she sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, she sent to clean her room. She stood open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestry, exclaiming over and over again, "Gor, ain't it pretty? Gor, ain't it something then?" I did no cleaning at all. And while Meg was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Just as Meg's inability to perform any job well had its consequences. For, finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Meg to the kitchen, where cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In cook's kitchen, Meg dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly on the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. "For all of the good-for-nothings I have encountered," shouted cook, "surely you are the worst, the most cauliflower-eared, the good-for-nothingest. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon." "Eh?" said Meg, cupping a hand around her ear. "You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on." Reader, you know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that the humans feared it too? Certainly it was never far from their minds. In the warm months, a foul odor rose out of its dark depths and permeated the whole of the castle. And in the still, cold winter nights, terrible howls issued from the dark place, as if the castle itself was weeping and moaning. "It's only the wind," the people of the castle assured each other. "Nothing but the wind." Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, and who had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Meg's fate? Gor, I hope not. What kind of a story would this be without Meg? "Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool," shouted the cook. "This is what you do. You take the tray of food down to the dungeon, and you wait for the old man to eat the food. Then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that?" "Aye, I reckon so," said Meg. "I take the old man the tray, and then he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty it would be then. I bring the empty tray back up from the deep downs." "That's right," said cook. "Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it." "Eh?" said Meg. "Nothing," said cook. "Good luck to you. You'll be needing it." She watched as Meg descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Meg had a light. On the tray with the food, there was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned down the stairs and looked back at cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool," said Cook, shaking her head. "What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling, I ask you?" Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. Chapter 31. A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Meg. Perhaps that is because, sometimes, when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Meg's nose instead. This happened often enough that it would interrupt the proper workings of Meg's olfactory senses. And so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and hopelessness and evil was not at all discernible to her, and she went happily down the twisting and turning stairs. "Gore!" shouted Meg. "It's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, it is, Meg," she answered herself. "But if I was a princess, I would be so glittery, like, there wouldn't be a place in the world that would be dark to me." At this point, Megariso broke into a little song that went something like this: "I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be the P-he-ha, someday I will be." Meg, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer, more of a bellower, really, but in her little song there was, to the rightly tuned ear, a certain kind of music, and as Meg went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing his spoon on his head. "Yes, yes," whispered the rat, "a lovely song, just the song I have been waiting to hear." And Roscurl quietly fell and stepped behind Megariso. At the bottom of the stairs, Meg shouted out into the darkness, "Gore, it's me, Megariso. Sow. Most call me Meg, delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deep Downs." There was no response. The dungeon was quiet, but it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of small, frightening sounds. There was a snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around a darkened corner there came the low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was the noise of the rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear these sounds. If we were standing together in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in our fear. But what did Megariso hear? That's right, absolutely nothing. And so she was not afraid at all, not in the least. She held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. "Gore," said Meg, "look at them things. I ain't never imagined there could be so many spoons in the whole wide world." "There is more to this world than anyone could imagine," said a booming voice from the darkness. "True, true," whispered the squirrel. "The old jailer speaks true." "Gore," said Meg, "who said that?" And she turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. That is the end of that chapter. We will continue next time.